Okay, hi. So good. Hi. Um, Sorry, I think I lost track of the time. I thought it was 12 Ghana time, not knowing it was in Nigerian time. Um, sorry, but I'm here now. Thanks.
Can you hear me? Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I had a bit of network issues joining. No.
Good morning, distinguished guests, panelists, and attendees. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's discussion on green minerals, green growth, and climate action, Ghana's policy journey. Today, we will explore the impact, opportunities, and challenges of Ghana's green mineral policy, including its role in renewable energy development, industrialization, and sustainable economic growth. We would call Chubukum Agbebu, who is a senior fellow climate change and energy transition at the African Policy Research Institute, to give us the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Maxwell. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from, distinguished colleagues and partners, and everyone who has joined this webinar. On behalf of the Africa Policy Research Institute, I am very delighted to welcome you to today's discussion on Ghana's green transition, evaluating the performance and impact of the green minerals policy. For those of you who don't know APRI, the Africa Policy Research Institute, APRI, is an independent Africa-focused research institute that is dedicated to providing evidence-based insights that help shape policy and strengthen governance across the continent. This project is funded by the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation under the Climate Protection Fellowship and is fully hosted and managed by APRI. Ghana's vast endowment of critical minerals, that's minerals such as lithium, graphite, manganese, amongst others, offers the country a historic opportunity to position itself at the center of the global green economy. The Green Minerals Policy, introduced in July 2023, signaled a bold commitment that value addition must begin here in Ghana, creating jobs, deepening industrialization, and strengthening economic resilience. 2 years on, the essential question before us is no longer about policy ambition, but about policy performance. How far have we come in translating this framework into real economic diversification, new investments, and a renewable energy-powered industrial base? And importantly, how well does this policy align with Ghana's broader green transition architecture, from the National Energy Transition Framework to the Green Finance Taxonomy? Today's conversation brings together government leaders, industry experts, and civil society voices to interrogate these questions honestly and constructively. Our goal is simple: to help close the gap between policy design and implementation, ensuring that the benefits of Ghana's green transition are transparent, equitable, and transformative. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to a rich and solutions-driven discussion. Thank you. Back to you, Maxwell.
Thank you very much, Chibukum. That was very insightful opening remarks. And next, we would call Mr. David Omata to give us a keynote presentation.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are joining us from. Please, I want to confirm that you can see my screen.
Not yet.
Yeah, I think I can see the screen.
Okay, my presentation on the Ghana's Green Minerals Policy. Sorry, I just want to get the go-ahead before I quickly proceed.
We can see.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Charles. So once again, thank you for joining this webinar. And I'm going to be very brief. I'm just setting the space for our experts who have joined or who will be joining the panel today to discuss this, the Ghana Green Mineral Policy. And then, as we know, and the debate that has been going around this for some time now, some people say, oh, there is no green minerals policy. Others say it exists, but it is not a single document. And some say, since it is a policy and it's not yet an act, then maybe there may be no need for the implementation. But I want to quickly set a tone for the conversation that this green minerals policy is a compilation that aims to drive value addition and then climate action in Ghana. Then, what is the Green Minerals Policy? The Green Minerals Policy is a framework that was approved by the cabinet, that is the Ghana's cabinet, in 2023, I think July, thereabout, and it aims to guide the extraction and the industrial use of these green minerals that are needed for global decarbonization and then the energy transition. But the good thing about this policy is it is not a single document, and this is what has raised the questions around it over the years. We need to understand that this is a composite of reforms, laws, and regulations. And it's a good thing that Ghana is currently standing more at the intersection of these two global forces. One, the surging demand for green minerals, and then the urgent need for clean energy. So we have our lithium, manganese, bauxite, and all of these other green minerals that can power the transition. But this can only happen if we are able to build the right framework around this. Like I said, the Ghana's Green Minerals Policy is a compilation, a set of laws, acts, frameworks, and agreements that works together to push Ghana from raw mineral exporter to being a global green hub for value addition. Now, what makes up this Green Minerals Policy? Now, the Green Minerals Policy is a compilation of key documents, like I say. And these documents, what do? They are meant to collectively guide Ghana's approach to licensing, the ownership, value addition, fiscal management, and then maybe the integration of all of this with the Nigerian energy, the Ghana's energy transition plan. Now, if you look at this presentation, we have different acts there, then we have a regulation, we have agreements. So all this together, like the Minerals and Mining Act, then the Minerals Policy, then we have the Energy Transition Plan, we have the Lithium Lease Agreement, local content, and then local participation regulation, Environmental Protection Agency regulations. All of this is what put together to make this Green Minerals Policy. And we have currently the ongoing reforms, maybe around the Act 703, which I believe Charles and Mr. Seth from the commissions, they will be able to speak to this better, having worked on all of this. Now, once the cabinet approves a policy, right, what is the next thing as it happens with the Green Minerals Policy? So once the cabinet approves a policy, then it moves into the implementation and then the monitoring. So whether we are waiting for some part of it to be put into an act or a regulation, once a policy is approved, then what is expected is to move into the implementation and monitoring. And this involves what government wants to do, why the government wants to do it, how will the government go about it, who is responsible for what, and then what are the expected outcomes from this policy. Now, 2 years on, July 2023 till now, this policy has been approved. What is the update? Where are we? What progress have we made? What challenges are we facing? And this is what we are going to discuss today. We have a lineup of our experts that will delve into this for us. Like I said, policies are not just announcements, they are meant to be implemented. So for the Green Minerals Policy, ideally, the implementation should look into some aspects like maybe the legal action of it, legal action, maybe to amend the Act 703, which I believe is currently ongoing, maybe publishing new regulations that can guide to further enforce this policy, creating licensing that guides for the green minerals, and things like setting the royalty rates and the fiscal terms. So these are some of the implementation that maybe are expected from the legal side of this. Then we have the institutional actions. These institutional actions, things like the Minerals Commission to set the compliance rule, the EPA to enforce the environmental conditions, and other things like maybe the geological surveys and mapping. So 2 years on, where are we with these institutional actions? Are we still at the intentions, or we have moved into fully implementing this? Then we have the operational actions. Maybe things like the companies that are required to process these minerals locally, how many of them have been given the approval, how many are fully in operation currently, things like maybe enforcing the raw minerals and then the export bans. We have maybe lithium export bans, but do we still have illicit flows of these minerals that still leaves the country unprocessed? How far have we gone with operationalizing all of this? Then maybe monitoring local content requirements and things like tracking value additions for the plants, the processing plants that have been approved. How well have we gone? What are the challenges? And lastly, we may look into things like the stakeholders engagement. We have the indigenous people, the communities where these minerals are. How far have we engaged with them? How well are we engaging with them? Then the private sector's briefing, the private sector's role, the NGOs, the civil society organizations that also needs to help us drive this. How well have we engaged all of the stakeholders? And looking into things like clear communication to investors. How are we engaging with the investors to be able to like give them this confidence to come and invest to process this green mineral? So all of these are what that turns this policy from the intentions into the realities. And if we look further, the green minerals policy, what does it even aim to achieve for Ghana? If all the things we have said, if they are put in place efficiently and effectively, this policy aims to ensure that extraction of critical and green minerals benefits Ghanaians economically, socially, and industrially, rather than the old model of exporting raw ores from for foreign profits. So let's not allow what happened within the gold sector, or what happened to gold to happen to these green minerals in the form of galamsey. And so then the second benefit that we aim, or that is expected from this, is to capture more values domestically, like via downstream processing and industrialization. So refining and like possibly battery or manufacturing industry. And we know Ghana is currently leading in terms of these electric vehicles and lithium processing in West Africa, if not even in Africa. But how far have we gone with this? Then the next point is to diversify the mining sector. So beyond gold, like I said, to minerals that are relevant to clean energy transition. So the resilience against like gold price volatility, and then alignment with gold demand for critical minerals. So how do we diversify from depending on gold to other minerals that we have? And we have next, like, develop domestic capacity. So geology, industry, skilled labor, regulatory institutions, building all of this into a sustainable and long-term mining plus the industrial base for Ghana. And lastly, this would offer like a transparent, regulated, fair and stable mining environment for both investors and the local actors to balance the national interest and foreign investment in a sustainable manner. As I conclude, and I set the space for the discussion, again, 2 years after the cabinet approved the green minerals policy, the discussion has been more of a debate, whether it exists in practice or on paper. But the real question I want to put before us today is, let us not look at this as just what the policy says, but let's question ourselves whether Ghana is truly moving from the intentions into implementations. And I round off with these 3 questions. So where are we currently in operationalizing this policy? Are we still debating whether it exists, or it's just on paper, or we are waiting whether it has to be moved into an act or a regulation? And then who is accountable for moving these things forward? Is it the civil society like ASEP that has joined us, or the Ministry of Energy and Green Minerals, or we have other local players that needs to drive this forward? And if value addition and non-raw exports are the core pillars, Then what concrete steps have been taken so far to enforce them? And then what are the gaps that remains here? And lastly, how do we ensure that Ghana's green mineral strategy benefits the Ghanaians and not just the investors, right? And then what must change now to make all of these things happen? Thank you for listening, and I look forward to an insightful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for that detailed and illuminating presentation. I think we would have to move into our panel discussion. Before we begin, let me introduce our distinguished panelists. So we have Mr. Sept Mahu, who is the Director of Renewables, Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, Ghana. Mr. Charles Jemfi Ofori, Policy Lead, Climate Change and Energy at ASEP, and Mr. Peter Ni Chawe, who is a Senior Manager, Infrastructure and Capital Projects, Deloitte and Touche. We are honored to have all of you with us today. To begin, I would like to pose a broad question to the entire panel. 2 years since the launch of Green Minerals Policy, what do you see as the most significant outcome and progress so far in advancing Ghana's green transition and all economic development?
Who is starting?
Yes, so please, any of our panelists can jump on. This is the opening question for all of us.
Well, so can I
Yes,
take
yes,
it then?
yes, please, yes.
Okay, good. So thank you for the question. Yeah, so I'm standing in for my partner Yao Apialate. He's the Africa lead for infrastructure and capital projects. Unfortunately, he's unable to be here because he has to be on another engagement. So I'm standing in for him for Deloitte. So thank you for this question. Yes, so 2 years on, we think the most significant outcome is that the Green Minerals Policy has successfully transitioned from, a visionary document to an operational reality, fundamentally shifting Ghana's approach, to mineral resource management as we've known it before. The progress can be categorized into three. We have 3 areas we want to focus on in terms of the progress that has been made. So the first one is the establishment of a new and enforceable regulatory paradigm. The second is the positioning of Ghana as a strategic ESG compliant investment destination, where ESG is environmental, social, and governance, compliance issues. Then the third is laying the groundwork for structural economic transformation. So I take them one after the other. So for the first one, the establishment of a new enforceable regulatory paradigm. We think this with, the signing of the agreement with Atlantic Lithium for the EUA project, which has, commercial quantities of, lithium deposits. So this agreement is not merely a mining lease. It is a tangible proof that the policy's pillars are enforceable. It sets a groundbreaking precedent with its 13% royalty rate, 10% state carried interest, and the mandatory establishment of a clear departures from the old, let's say the gold was, I think, about 5% or so. Move Ghana's position from a passive raw material exporter to an active strategic partner, and it has set the irreversible benchmark for all future green mineral projects. Then the second one is positioning Ghana as a strategic ESG compliant investment destination. Now, the policy has successfully reframed Ghana's value proposition by mandating high ESG standards and transparent community development agreements. Again, this is a departure from the previous. So there's no longer, issues about just encouraging corporate social responsibility, but now it is leading to mandatory, enforcement of the operationalization of community development agreements. Now, this has already attracted serious attention or interest from major battery and automotive manufacturers who are under pressure to secure ethical and transparent supply chains. So the policy has therefore been instrumental in de-risking Ghana for a new class of quality long-term investor aligned with the global energy transitions, thus moving Ghana from the traditional mining investment cycle. Then finally, it's helped to lay the groundwork for structural economic transformation. So now you're looking at the broader economy and the spillover into West Africa. And then also think about it in terms of Africa, given that the Secretariat for the African Free Trade Area sits in Accra. So while the full-scale economic benefits are yet to be realized, the most significant progress lies in the fundamental work for local value addition. That's the core of the policy. That's not just from pit to export or you dig and ship, but then from pit, move it to product. So that's very significant point that we need to note. So the mandate for the local processing plants is the first concrete step towards creating a new industrial ecosystem. It paves the way for high-skilled jobs in chemical engineering and advanced manufacturing, amongst others, moving Ghana into the deeper value chain of the minerals wealth. Then it further, establishes the income fund where Ghana plays in through the Minerals Income Investment Fund. So there is that, skin in the game. So it also helps to de-risk the policy implementation so that investors get to know that their host is also a part of it and so interested in the long-term success of the project. So in conclusion, the most significant outcome in these 2 years is the decisive break from the past. We have moved from the policy aspiration to commercial contract, which is now visible, establishing a new higher standard for resource governance that prioritizes national value retention, community benefit, and sustainable practice. The foundation for a green industrial future, we think, has been laid. And the challenge now is to build upon it with relentless focus on implementation. So I think we'll end it on this note. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Peter. That was really great. So we'll take from Mr. Charles or Mr. Benjamin Otu. What are your reflections on that?
All right. Thank you so much, Maxwell, and thanks for the invitation. I think as far as I know, mining policy in Ghana is concerned, I think we've been at it in terms of trying to see what Ghana's mining policy really is, and then how we can even make it better. One of the biggest conversations we had was that we have a legal and a policy framework as far as mining is concerned, to the best of my knowledge. But in terms of a key or a very tailored policy around green minerals is yet to be seen, maybe outside with David's initial statement that raised the question as to whether we have a very specific green minerals policy. Ghana had a 2014 mining policy that addressed certain critical challenges that were outlined in the Africa Mining Vision. For instance, weaknesses in mobilizing revenues from resource exploitation, suboptimal contract negotiating capacities, inadequate benefit sharing arrangements and management, inadequate disclosure of resource contracts, ineffective regulation of artisanal and small-scale mining, and some inadequate investment in geological, geochemical, and other geophysical data acquisition. And that were addressed by the 2014 mining policy. So in so many years down the line, about 10 years down the line, there was a chance for us to revise this mining policy. And that is what government intended to do, that there's an opportunity to look at how we can revise this mining policy. And so when that revision was being done, we had some stakeholder input into it. And some of the input included that we should have a strategic mineral licensing and environmental governance, community engagement, of course, and then a clear strategy for green mineral development and then utilization. So in that, one of the key recommendations was for governments to develop a strategy for green minerals that really aligns with industrialization and some economic diversification objectives, and also prioritize strategic minerals with clear policy guidelines for investment, and also to strengthen some level of intersectoral coordination mechanisms. For instance, coordination between the mining sector, the energy sector, and other industrial policy institutions, so that we can optimize the green minerals development. And then also recommended that they create a policy environment that is conducive to sustainable investment in green mineral value chains through various targeted incentives and then public-private partnerships. So these are some of the things that we've recommended as far as the development of the new mining policies is concerned. As far as my knowledge serves me, we've had those conversations around the development of a mining policy, but as to whether there exists a real, policy document on green minerals, we do not have it to the best of my knowledge. But it doesn't also mean that existing policies do not, take care of some aspects of the green minerals. For instance, our Minerals and Mining Act will still have, they have effects on whether the mineral is green or it's not. So there is a certain legal backing to it, and it also spells out the fiscal regimes around it. So those issues are already being captured, but perhaps there was a need for us to now go deeper to really establish a clear-cut, green minerals policy. Probably, maybe the development of the Africa Green Mineral Strategy and some other things at the regional level can push us to really get these policy issues done to some extent, so that we can decide and then see what we are driving at. And that notwithstanding, I think that Mr. Chawi also noted on some developments as well. The signing of the lithium agreement that we had between ourselves as a country and then Atlantic Lithium or Badari Limited, which has generated a lot of stir within the country. I think we had quite some favorable terms as far as the fiscals was concerned. But again, we've had some delays in the ratification from Parliament, which also coupled with some market, issues, because now the price of lithium has reduced by about 80%, and that has prompted the company to meet with government to revise the fiscal terms. So the 10% that we're enjoying, the 13% that we're enjoying may be in limbo as far as the fiscal terms are concerned. And that is a market discussion and those things. So again, these are other things that we need to take note of, the governance and the politics around, some of these arrangements and how delays can affect our ability to really do the kind of optimization that we want to do, because the market is not waiting for you to do your ratification or anything. And those are critical issues that I believe that if we're able to do a policy or even a new legal framework around green minerals, these things should be addressed, in our policy direction so that we can really maximize the benefits and the gains that we are getting from these deals, or even the bigger conversation around green minerals. Maybe I'll end here and then we can revert. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Charles Gemfi. That was also very exhaustive. So we'll also take the reflection from Mr. Benjamin Otu. Mr. Benjamin.
Sorry, just to let you know, Benjamin is my colleague, and unfortunately, he can't participate in this. So maybe you could pass on to another participant. Yeah, he joined me in here, but he's been called on to another discussion.
All right. Thank you very much. So Mr. Gemfi, Charles Gemfi. So I would come to you with, you just ended, so I would also come to you now with ASAP, or giving ASAP's instrumental role in shaping and monitoring these kinds of policies. What key trends and developments are you observing in transition of the value addition mandate into the concrete economic activity, job creation and emission reduction? Yeah. Please, you are muted.
There's a lot of development and conversations that we see as far as the green minerals side of things are concerned. And you're not careful, some of these becomes largely aspirational. Every African country that has some level of green minerals have said on one scale or one platform or another that broad statement, we do not want to export our green minerals in its raw quantities or in its raw forms. I think it's an aspiration that every industry or every country has set, and that is true. That can be a step in the right direction. But I mean, a bigger question happens to be the how that things could go through. We can talk about the economies of scale. We can talk about the financing. We can talk about the industrial capacity to be able to do all of these. Those are bigger conversation that leads us to the destination that we want to get to. Otherwise, everything will be aspirational. So in terms of what the key trends are, I mean, people are seeing the increasing demand for these minerals, for the energy transition technologies. So you can talk about batteries, and then the demand for lithium, and then the demand for for cobalt and other green minerals. For particularly in Ghana, at least we talk about our lithium, and even some of the earlier minerals that have not identified themselves to be the kids on the block, like our bauxite and then our manganese, have been critical, minerals that we have been involved in. So if you look at it, lithium has not even been the first, right? But we've had some kinds of new other minerals that we've already been mining that are relevant for it. So the demand has spurred this kinds of conversation, which is good. But again, another thing that we also have to look at is the price dynamics, on the markets, which is another development. As we mentioned, between 2023 and now, the price of lithium has really fallen, not because quality of lithium has fallen, no, but because some of the explanations said that there were a lot of stock up in terms of inventories. And so between that time and now, a lot of companies stocked up a lot of inventories to be able to create a lot of raw materials for their developments, and that reduced, how much is being demanded in terms of the raw material, and that also brought down the price, drastically. So that is a major market factor that can affect a country that is coming in to, be part of the development space. We also see some competing, minerals that are coming in here and there. Especially people are still working to identify, even more and more efficient minerals in the system, and that could be advantageous or disadvantageous in terms of how you position yourself. I know that the story of sodium is becoming more and more intense, and its ability to replace lithium has been a bigger conversation that we are beginning to have now. If this becomes, a revolution, then that is a big game changer to the lithium, market and the environment, and especially for those who are now coming in, then you even reduce the demand for it even more. So that kind of development that is happening globally should also help every country or even Ghana to position itself to see what must I do to take advantage of the current evolution so that I don't lose out, or I don't get into a situation where the world has already moved ahead in terms of technology and in terms of the development. So our R&D potential and those other things should be things that we should inform our policy development. What is happening in the world. As I mentioned, the market forces, the competing minerals are very important things that we should take note of when we need to make strong decisions as to how our policies should be structured.
Thank you so much, Charles. Now to Mr. Peter Nichawe. So from an infrastructure and capital project perspective, what do international investors consider the key enabling factors such as infrastructure, energy reliability, and logistics when deciding to fund processing and manufacturing facilities in Ghana?
Okay, thank you very much. So just to touch on, what my co-panelists have said, most of the things look aspirational because we're yet to see the full implementation of it. But then I guess as Ghanaians, as Africans, we also want to look at the positive side of it, given that it's a clear departure from how things have been done, especially with the mandatory requirement to set up factory and also to give back to the community, moving away from the normal, corporate social responsibilities we are familiar with. So from a vantage point of infrastructure and capital projects, international investors would scrutinize, three key things from our perspective. They are looking at the energy that is required. They also looking at the logistics, the movements of both equipment and product when it comes out. And then they're also looking at the industrial, social, community ecosystem within which they'll be operating. The question is, will they be favorable? And these are things that hit on the bankability and eventually the operational viability of the project. So from the energy reliability, affordability, and the sourcing, this is a non-negotiable cornerstone for energy-intensive processes like lithium conversion or graphite refining. Investors will prioritize, the great reliability and capacity. The processing plant is like a 24-hour, operational activity. So the number one question is, can Ghana's national grid provide the uninterrupted, stable, and sufficient power without, frequent outages that we've known, as doom so in the past? Thankfully, recently, things are improving. So I think we're on the road to having some uninterrupted power supply. That will not, halt their operations. Investors would also conduct their rigorous due diligence on specific grid capacity, and also then decide if they have to have their own, separate plans to support. Nowadays, people are going into the renewables. I mean, when you go to the northern part of Ghana, Great Coal will say they are seeking to expand the capacity there to take care of the middle belt and then the, northern sectors of the country. The cost of the power is another area that, investors would like to look at. If we look at Ghana, I think residential power is going for about 0.16 kilowatt per hour, and then for commercial, it's averaging around 0.14 for commercial activities. And these compare favorably with our peers within West Africa. And even within Africa, plus or minus. I mean, we've seen some areas where it comes to about 0.01211, which is cheaper, and other areas too, which are more expensive than what we currently have in Ghana. So that's some of the dynamics to be looking at. Then also the path to green power. So the question is, are you moving more towards green energy supply? Ghana used to be more dependent on hydro, where we had more than 60% hydro, but now the dynamics have changed. We have about 60% from thermal, and then just over 30% from hydro. Logistics and the transportation corridors. So we're looking at the efficiency of ports and then the capacity. So the Port of Ghana and Takoradi are vital assets when it comes to that. Investors need assurance that these ports can efficiently handle the oversized processing machinery and then the export of their finished products. Now we are not focusing on raw because the policy does not allow that. So they're looking at the products that will come from the processing. Are they able to easily transport to ports and then ship them to the various destinations for, trading? Road and rail, we know most of the mining companies depend on our roads. But again, how reliable 100% are they? We know there are challenges. So I guess that's where the year of roads in previous governments, and then now the big push, we're again hoping, success on that. There are quite a number of key roads outlined to be developed. I mean, one key one is the expressway between Accra and Kumasi. These are two major cities. And all these years, there's been this challenge of getting the road infrastructure properly done. So we can point to the big push, which is seeking to, correct some of these things. And I guess that's one area that, investors will be looking at. Real infrastructure, when it comes to mining, it's even preferred more than the road infrastructure. So there too, we identify the challenges that.
Hello, Mr. Peter. I think we just lost.
Infrastructure, which focus more on certain areas and then left certain areas.
I'm sorry, Mr. Peter. It looks like you
Industrial
are.
parks,
I don't know.
the community.
Hello, Peter.
Give them.
So sorry. I think Peter just dropped off, and okay, he's back. Peter, can you hear us? You are muted.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So we lost you for about say about just a minute. So if you can just take it from that angle.
What was the last word you heard?
I think for me, I heard you were talking about the big I heard of the big push.
The big push. Okay. So the big push by current government, I mean, it's come in different forms and acronyms and year of roads, all seeking to, improve on the road infrastructure. So these are some of the logistical, connections that investors will be looking at. So I was saying that the big push agenda by current governments is in the right direction. Usually we have it nice on paper. So the implementation is where we think, policy advocates like yourself can also push to whip everybody in line. Then the final one there is the community cohesion, the industrial environments they will be actually operating in. So that's why the focus on the community development agreements this time around, made prominent in the policy document we've seen should be implemented, should be enforced, should be operationalized, so that it moves away from mere encouraging you to do corporate social responsibility to actually having that as part of your OPEX, as part of your KPI, as part of your deliverable for all to see. That way, you keep everybody happy. It becomes a win-win for both your host communities and then you, the investors coming in to trade. So in summary, international investors are not just evaluating the mineral deposit, they are also assessing Ghana's ability to provide a reliable, cost competitive and integrated industrial platform. The consistent theme is de-risking. I think that's what they'll be looking at. But I think underlining that too is once there's a de-risking, there should be a win-win so that both parties, host and yourself, will benefit. So we would seek to ensure that Ghana moves towards that direction and attract more FDIs. And this time around, change the narrative about mining for sustainability, mining for the benefits of the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Great submission there. Now back to Mr. Charles Jemfi. I mean, we want to now move into your recent gap analysis of the Minerals and Mining Act, which is Act 703, and the draft amendment. What critical elements of the legislative review are needed to balance national interest and also increase local participation and maintain an attractive investment climate, given Mr. Peter's background on investment and infrastructure? So, yeah, Mr. Jemfi. Mr. Jemfi, you are muted.
All right, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I think that you for you to repeat the last aspect of your question again.
So the last aspect of the question was looking at a balanced national interest, increasing the local participation, and also to maintain an attractive investment climate.
Yeah, I think that is a balance that all of us need to look at. And it cuts across every sector, whether it is mining or it's oil and gas or it's power or every other industry. That kind of balance is what we need to maintain. I stress it every now and then, every opportunity I get, that the presence of foreign investors in a country is not a mark of foreign control, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they should be sacked, right? We need FDIs. I mean, research has shown consistently, academic research, policy-oriented research has shown how FDIs have been able to, propel economic growth. But a very interesting moderating factor in all of this is the presence of strong institutions, right? So where institutional weaknesses exist, we don't see much of the influence of FDI inflows and then economic growth for a country. Where strong institutions exist, you can see the relationship. So there's a huge moderator in there from a very econometric research perspective. We can see that, and so you need to be able to see how well your institutions are strong, anti-corruption, tax mechanisms, and all of those other things. That provides, a good environment as well for both on the stick side in terms of enforcement and then the carrot side in terms of attracting investment. It's very important. Ghana has in our mining sector a local content policy that seeks to show how we can increase the local interest in the mining sector, and this really happens especially around the supply of goods and services within the mining supply chain. So for instance, there are some services that are being given solely to local companies to do. Some of them also has a certain minimum shareholding structure that they need to do. Some have some minimum equity participation that we need to look at it. But again, the problem is not the fact that we have a local content policy or we do not have a local content policy. The challenge has been that the policy is directly based on ownership rather than technology or skills transfer, rather than knowledge transfer. And the points and the perspectives on ownership has driven some practices around fronting where people just front for companies to come in, partake in the activities without any meaningful transfer of technology, without any meaningful participation, which is actually the spirit of the local participation or a certain law that allows local participants to come in. So once we are not able to deal with the enforcement around the transfer of the technology, we are going to have Ghanaian ownerships, but then it will be on paper, not really in terms of actively participation in some of the things that we are talking about. And that is a huge problem. But of course, even companies that do want to be empowered to do work also face a lot of trouble. And I think Mr. Chawi mentioned a lot of things that are not necessarily mining focused issues, but the gaps in there really affect doing business within the mining sector or green minerals, however you put it. And that really tells you that, the building a strong green minerals sector cannot be done by the mining sector itself alone. It can be done by Minerals Commission alone. It can be done by the ministry responsible for lands and natural resources alone. It is an energy problem. It is a power problem. It is a financing problem. It is an industrial knowledge problem. And it is an industrial policy issue, right? Where we can look at it. So one of the recommendations we normally give is to see how we can build an industrial policy on the back of some of these things, so that if your manufacturing sector is robust, if your other sectors are robust, you can easily provide, link up with the mining supply chain, or even link up with the downstream in terms of value addition. Those are safeguards that you need to put in place to be able to ride on the successes of the mining sector. But again, coming back to your issue about balancing the interest between the local and then the foreign, I think that it's an important perspective that we need to have. First of all, to understand that the presence of foreigners or foreign entities to work within your country doesn't signal that you are going to have foreign control over your natural resources. It is how your rules and your laws and your regulations are able to maintain and control the activities of entities as they come in. And also, it is also not the fact that having just a local-based entity would ensure safeguards in terms of environmental safeguards and financial safeguards. Every entity, whether local or foreign, are supposed to work within the confines of the law, what the fiscal regime says, what the financial regime says, what the environmental protection regime also says. But if you want to really create a balance in interest, it means that building that kind of environment that allows local players to be able to perform well within the environment. And that is where the points that we discussed beyond just mining sector regulations are important. I mean, the cost of power is important. The cost of doing business is important. The cost of financing is important. Those are critical for every industry to be able to operate. So within a green minerals policy, again, it comes back to the point that we should allow the policy to speak to some of these environmental, when I say environmental, not the normal environmental that we are talking about, but the business environment or the business climate, the things that really affect the business climate, the things that affect our doing business. It's important. And just statistics wise, one of the we try to track some of these indicators across time, doing business indicators, governance indicators, and mining attractiveness indicators across time. And we saw that Ghana has really maintained some form of positioning in terms of it, not increasing, not reducing. But beyond that, we were having competitors like, Cote d'Ivoire, really, and even Burkina, right? Even increasing their scopes in terms of the doing business indicators and in terms of the governance indicators, increasing their pace. And that shows that, you cannot bank on your former glories, to maintain your stance. You have to really see that other countries are competing with you, and it's the same thing that we are seeing. Okay, so Guinea is coming up. They also have reserves of bauxite. Each country is now beginning to have reserves of lithium and all of that. So it gets to a point where the conversation is no longer about how much you have, right? Because we all may be able to have, but it depends on how are we able to create a good environment for business and for investments to thrive. And that if these investments thrive, local content can thrive, whether it is downstream value addition or is upstream linkage to the supply chain.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Gemfi. I think that's also very interesting and a lot of key points that you stressed on. So finally, we would finally back to Mr. Chawi. So the policies emphasize on increased local participation and then community development agreements is significant. How can Ghana position these requirements as strategic advantages that enhance projects' bankability and then de-risk long-term investments?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So just to quickly pick on one point Mr. Jenfi said, which is very instructive. The fact that now there's competition all over. I mean, Ghana is not the only country that, has chanced on these green minerals. I mean, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina, and they are all, upping their, upping their thresholds to attract these foreign investors. So Ghana should also strengthen it and then move it from paper to operational, success. Yes. So at the heart, the question you asked is at the heart of modern project financing. It strategically needs to point to reframing the local participation and community development agreements to make it attractive both for the investor and then for the financing community, given where the world is moving to now in terms of the ESG, requirements. Because once we do that, it will help to de-risk the whole environment. It will help to create the enabling environment for the various players. So we'll look at it in 3 points. The first one being to position the local participation as a strategic equity buffer and the government's governance lever, not necessarily as a cost item, but look at it strategically. That if you are able to entrench yourself as an investor in the community and ensure that you're ticking the boxes on all the ESGs as an entrenched in the policy document, you also, turn out to be more favorable in the eyes of the investing, community. So, for example, when the state Minerals Income Investment Fund, has a stake in the process. It gives a skin in the game, and that should be like a buffer for whoever is coming on board. And we think this is a very powerful signal to investors. It means the government is less likely to, for example, change regulation arbitrarily or impose punitive measures, as it would also harm its own, investment. So Ghana may want to, for example, market this as, in Ghana, your partner has skin in the game. And in our investment environment, that is what usually potential financiers look at. They want to see your skin in the game. So I think the MIIF, or Minerals Income Investment Fund, is a strategic move that should, help to, strengthen this. We are also looking at, local equity partners, especially Ghanaian corporate entities, bringing invaluable on board, knowledge and network and navigational capital. So I think the end game is to eventually also list some of these, projects onto the stock exchange to bring about the broad-based participation by the citizenry. I mean, the more you engage them in their own resources, the more, you quench or reduce the potential for social unrest, among other things. Then also frame the community development agreement as an insurance for social license to operate. Recently, we've had issues about, the established gold miners having the threat of social unrest and, locals encroaching into their spaces. And if you look at it critically, if they are not getting their the share of the win-win from your activities, so these things are bound to happen. So we would recommend that it is couched as an insurance for social license to operate. So that way, if the investors see it as that kind of insurance, it will sit comfortably on their OPEX as, a quantifiable, implementation output that, becomes clear for everybody to see. If you put these two together, then you're winning on the ESG premium narrative, because the global finance and manufacturing landscape has fundamentally shifted. Major banks, institutional investors, and Western automotive, manufacturers are under immense pressure, to meet stringent ESG criteria. So a project that can verifiably demonstrate, high local ownership, local content, equitable benefits sharing, and profound community support is no longer just compliance, but it becomes a premium for them to consider. There's also the strategic marketing to end buyers. We would advise investors that their offtake agreements will be more secure and potentially command a higher price if they can market their product as powered by partnership, Ghanaian lithium, responsibly sourced, and community backed. So these are some of the areas that we should look at to enhance, the whole lithium or green minerals agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chawi. I think our panelists have been very great. Thank you so much for your thoughtful contributions as well. Now we'll take a few questions from our participants, and then I would read the first question, and the first question goes to Mr. Jemfi. So the panel, the person would want to understand, given the fact that you work with government and also you provide support from ASEP, what are some of the experiences like pushing against some government policies that do not really cover public interest as regards these green minerals? So that's the question. I believe the person wants to understand the experience with how you deal with governments and all. If it's not in the public interest, how do you go about it? Please, you are muted.
Yeah, I think by and large, it's really about how you're able to engage and communicate, and the evidence that you generate. It is important that whatever advocacy that you do, you have evidence to support the advocacy in terms of the impact of certain initiatives that may come, the impact of certain decisions, very well placed, well assessed, well articulated to really speak through the things that you are talking about. And we can cite a lot of examples from the mining sector, even our advocacy around the EJAPA deal that came in. The way you analyze it and the way we did the assessment showed that government or the country didn't stand, a chance of benefiting from the gains. And we've done quite a lot of such evidence-based assessments in there. So where you have to disagree, you do so, and you present the evidence in doing so. And I think that it's really lies on the clarity with which you inform the credibility of the evidence that you generate to support the argument, and how you're able to also carry government along and keep on engaging. Sometimes doing a one-off engagement may not necessarily yield the gains. You have to keep on doing it and doing it and doing it until you get the kind of gains that you are supposed to get. And sometimes you may not get them to listen, but with time, the evidence or the implications of their inactions becomes a bit, it's regrettable, but it's prophetic on your side, to show that, yeah, we spoke about this, but you didn't listen, and what we talked about has happened. So, but still doesn't give you the chance to say that I've stopped engaging. It's still about engaging more and more, and then getting them to understand these things. I think Mr. Chavi has talked a lot about the MIIF, which we have done a lot of analysis around to say that if we are also not able to monitor, the investments that they are using the money for, because at the time that the law was passed, and they were getting about 80% of our entire mineral royalties, and that was huge amount of money. So you can get to a point where you are suffering from having too much money and not knowing where to invest those monies without a very good, investment pathway. And sometimes you'll be made to just invest them in various schemes that may not, be profitable to you. And so how you can even ensure that there's a balanced way of, investing, and when you talk about skin in the game, how you ensure that, you put your skin in a certain game that is beneficial and not a loss-making, entity. All of those things are things that we've been trying to speak to government and to, bring their minds up to see how we can structure various schemes to maximize the gains that the country can have. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jemfi, for the response. And Mr. Chawi, you also have a question here. I think when we started the conversation, Mr. Jemfi rightly mentioned about the drop in lithium prices. So the global lithium price has dropped by 80% in recent years. Is this a plus or minus for investors already in the sector, like in mining sector, specifically to lithium, or those thinking going into the sector? So it's a double-edged question for Mr. Chawi.
I like the double edge question. So the current agreement with Atlantic Lithium gives clear evidence of the dynamics of what is happening. So they entered into agreement at a certain market price, which was high. Now, 2 years on, that has changed. the dynamics have changed. And I think that is what has brought about some delays in the parliamentary ratification, because they now have to get back on the drawing board and say, look here, we agreed based on this market price, but the pricing has changed. So for those already in the system, for now, I think the main player is the Atlantic Lithium. It's a challenge for them. They're seeking to reduce the rates that government has negotiated with them. And that's how come I think in the beginning, Mr. Jeffy mentioned something like, whether that will be realized or not, it all depends on the outcome of the negotiation. For those coming in, the other edge of the sword, then they would all be looking at negotiating at current market price and maybe be more, hedging focused, so that they project into the future that there's a possibility for pricing to change, to become volatile, so that, whatever they agree on now, they have the safety nets and cushions going forward because of their forward-looking or forward pricing on the negotiation. So it's a two-edged sword. Those in there are challenged, so they're seeking to renegotiate. And those coming in will pick lessons, check on the current market, but should also do a forward-looking strategy so that whatever they agree on now is cushioned for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chawi. That was really, really interesting. And so I think we have come to the end of our conversation. I personally have learned a lot from this, and it will be fair for us to give our panelists at least one minute to give us closing notes or advice on the next steps in terms of policy. Yeah, so maybe we'll take 1 minute each from Mr. Chawi just spoke. So Mr. Chawi, if you can just wrap up and give us your closing thoughts in 1 minute, and then Mr. Jemfi will also give us the 1 minute. Thank you.
Right. So to all the players, governments, investors, the citizenry, the global community, everybody's watching Ghana, everybody's watching Cote d'Ivoire, everybody's watching DRC, everybody's watching Burkina Faso, because now the world is moving towards green. And, thankfully, these countries have found, the minerals that would help to run these green, infrastructure or green technologies. The point is, learn from the previous agreements, previous processes, previous ways you have done things. In Ghana, I think currently the country probably is the largest producer of gold, if not for the gold board stepping in to, say, okay, so now I'm in charge of the movement of gold, export of gold, processing of gold. So everything should go through me. We wouldn't have seen that there's that huge gap between what is reported in the UAE as having been exported from Ghana and what actually sits in the books of the statistical service to say this is how much Ghana exported. There was a big gap. Where was that gap? It came through smuggling. So this going forward should inform how this new green minerals policy framework should be looked at and how it should be implemented for the benefit of the citizens and for the benefit investor, the benefit of everybody, and for the very benefit of the environment, that you work with sustainable green practices that are not harmful to the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chawi. Back to you, Mr. Jemfi.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I would proceed from what he talked about in terms of the gaps, and then, we've really heard a lot about how small scale gold has been increasing in terms of export value and how. But another bigger question is how it's translating to revenues for the state. Over time, although the contribution between large-scale gold and then small-scale gold is almost at par. Revenue that accrues to the state is about 98% large-scale. So the question is, where does the revenues from the small-scale gold? It's not in tandem with the production volumes that we are recording. And it means that, our ability to monitor small scale gold, not just production, but our ability to raise revenue from there, because the fiscal regime also affects them, the taxes, the royalty, and all of that affects them. If such a sector is accruing so much in terms of value, and it's not accruing so much in terms of revenue to the state, it's something that needs to be checked. So we need to really work around that. But also, we also need to ensure that our policy address, current market dynamics. It should address the changing face of things, especially, the sector we are in is very fluid. A lot changes by the minute. Technology is improving, prices are changing, dynamics are changing. And so your policy should be able to inform, a bit flexible enough to inform the changing dynamics so that you also be within the space to contribute to more or to even gain more from the states. And then one other thing is that, anytime we talk about green minerals, we are fixated on the value addition, the downstream parts, which is good, and it is something that we should focus on. But again, one thing we also lose is how we're able to, connect our industry to the upstream side of things, to the exploration, to the production, and other things. So that's where we also need to improve our mine support services sector. It's a very lower hanging fruit that we are ignoring in this whole conversation around green minerals optimization, and we need to pay attention to that. And the last recommendation that I want to say is actually regarding, the management of minerals or mineral revenue, especially around MIF and other things. And I believe that Parliament should also begin to institute independent oversight to review some of these investment decisions to ensure that they align with the development priorities of the country. Such investment funds should be subjected to independent external audits, and then also to publish various reports to enhance the transparency and accountability that we see in the sector.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Gyamfi, for that as well. And thank you all for the insights and the learnings. So I would quickly, your engagement, and then also let me thank our participants. To close the session, I would invite Chikamara Odu, who is a project coordinator at APRI, to deliver the closing remarks. Chikamara, over to you. I hope I got your name right.
Thank you, Maxwell. Yes, Chikamara. My name is Chikamara. I'm the project coordinator at Africa Policy Research Institute, APRI. So on behalf of APRI and the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, I'd like to say a very big thank you to everyone for joining today's important dialogue on Ghana's green transition, evaluating the performance and impact of the green minerals policy. The discussions today have brought into sharp focus the progress that has been made so far since the policy's launch, as well as the urgent need to bridge the gap between ambition and implementation. We've heard valuable insights on how Ghana can turn its endowments of lithium and other minerals into engines for green industrialization, anchored on strong governance, effective financing, and synergy with frameworks like the National Energy Transition Plan. I'll say the conversation today makes one thing clear, that achieving Ghana's green transition requires sustained coordination across government, industry, and the civil society to ensure that the benefits of this transformation are both inclusive and sustainable. So with that, I would like to say a very big thank you to the speakers, Mr. Charles Gyamfi Ofori, Mr. Peter Chawe, David Omata, and to you, Mr. Maxwell, for taking time out to be part of these important discussions today. I also like to thank the participants, those that have joined the webinar today. Thank you for taking time to be a part of this and for sending in questions to engage in this webinar. So with that, I'll say, as we bring the webinar to a close, I would like to mention that APRI still remains committed to supporting evidence-based policy engagement that helps both Ghana and other African countries to move from policy intent to measurable impacts. Thank you everyone for your time and for the insights today on the webinar, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.